Welcome to an old world battle report. We've got Bryan here with his Beastmen. We've got Garret with his Bretonnians. We are playing Meeting Engagement, and you can see this diagonal deployment here. However, we're not using the book version. We're using the square-based tournament version, which is a little bit less random, so you don't have one person getting really unlucky with rolling a bunch of ones. We're also using the 25-25 format, which we're using locally for our Summer League. That means that these lists were both constructed using only 25% Lords and 25% Heroes, rather than allowing you to take the full 50% character allocation with Lord choices. That's it. We'll be back in a second with the army list.
Hey guys, so yeah, I have my Beastmen here today. We got Razorgore out here on the flank of Slaanesh, just very cheap, efficient kind of interference runner. He's gonna be right there with a Tuskor Chariot. The bulk of my core is gonna be built up of Chariots and Razorgores, so you're gonna see them later on. We got a Gorbel over here, which is the hero version. He's actually going to be acting as my general in this format, which will let me take another Ghorgon, which you'll see in a bit. He's essentially naked. He's as cheap as I could build him. He just has a great weapon. I think maybe light armor, but I really splurged on him. Over here, we got first unit of Dragon Ogres with great weapons, no champion, so no shenanigans there. The bulk of my points there for my lords and heroes is going to be in the wizard there. That's that little chaos sorcerer there, the trickster I like to call him. He's going to be running elementalism this game. He rolled up wind blast, which is awesome. Summon elemental spirits and travel mystical pathways. I swapped out flaming sword for vile tide. He's got the hack tree fetish, so he's very good with his magic missiles. And then he's also got the flying carpet, so he can kind of zip around and get to a safe space where he needs to be to shoot off his missiles. Behind him, I have the mandatory unit of Gores. They're just going to be in a skirmishing formation to kind of protect my caster from being targeted by arrows and missiles himself. We got another Razor Gore there and another Chariot, same kind of deal. And then the meat and potatoes of the list, the beef, if you will, I got 3 Ghorgons. So 2 of them are going to eat up all my rare slots, and then I have another one eating up some points in special, and that's because I have the Gorbel as my general. They're kind of my best answer right now that I figured out to just kind of the dragons you see around in the meta right now. But other than that, protecting the flank on the far end, I got that second unit of Dragon Ogres, and then the same kind of configuration with a Chariot and a Razor Gore. And that's my 3,000 points in this 25-25 comp list. I did not put anything in reserve for the scenario. Everything's on the board.
All right, here's my 2,000 points of Bretonnia, starting on my left, about looking like right flank. This is my BSB Paladin on Royal Pegasus. He is charged up with a Gromroll helm and the Virtue of Duty and the War Banner, so he's a real combat res monster. Moving over, we have a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights, just a champ. Over from that, 6-man Mounted Knights of the Realm, champ and standard bearer. Our middle is a little congested. We have a bunch of archers. That's our Duke there. He has a Virtue of Heroism, opted for Anointed, just given the points scrunch that we were in. That was kind of the better defensive item for him, as well as the Virtue of Heroism. So he has Killing Blow and Monster Slayer. Behind that, we have the Men at Arms, a block of 20 with standard musician, a full command, and the Blessed Triptych. And we have a Trebuchet to try to hopefully push some wounds out on those big nasties. Next to them, another unit of Mounted Knights of the Realm, same as the previous unit. Over here, we have our Grail Knights. That includes a Prophetess. She's only a level 3 because, again, point squish and no other items other than the horse. And finally, we have on my right, the left flank for my opponent, is 3 units of another unit of 3 of the Pegasus Knights, also with a champ and a unit of Squires. And that does it for mine. Nothing in reserve for me either.
The start of the game, the Bretonnians have elected to pray and will be deferring first turn to the Beastmen. Strategy phase for the Beastmen. The Gaze of the Gods went off and he rolled a 6, so we got Dark Apotheosis for 1 strength and 1 leadership. Remaining moves for the Beastmen. So you can see that the Razor Gore is out here on the flank. The Chariots are all hanging back just slightly to make sure that they don't get charged, because it's, obviously they want the benefits of the impact hits. Gorbel is here. Dragon Ogres kind of working on denying that flank a little bit. And important here, the Wizard is within 15 inches of the Lord's choice over there, right there, the Duke. But is outside of dispel range from the prophetess, who's way over there with the ground knights. So he's going to try to get off a non-dispelled spell there in a second. Everything else just kind of moved up across the line. Shooting phase for the Beastmen. So this is primarily coming out of the Great Bray Shaman with the Hag Tree Fetish. So shot, again, would do that clever positioning there with the Prophetess being in that Grail Knight unit way over there, out of dispel range. He shot Viletide at the Duke, right? And killed him in one round of shooting. So that Duke is gone. Everybody passed their panic test. There was also a Wind Blast, which hit those Knights of the Realm there and pushed them back, killed 2 Knights. And Summon Elemental Spirit went down right there. On to the strategy phase for the Bretonnians. So we tried to Fated Dispel the Summon Elemental Spirit, failed. Also, the Spirit didn't go anywhere, just stayed exactly right there. What did you successfully cast?
Ferdinand's Falconhorn.
Ferdinand's Falconhorn, yes. Falconhorn went off, so there's no flying. And then any of your other spells?
Failed to cast the
failed to cast Wrath of the Lady. Charges for the Bretonnians. So the Peg Knights declared a charge on the Razor Gore. The Razor Gore took a calculated risk and tried to flee to try to bait the Pegasus unit into being in a bad position. Unfortunately, he fled too effectively and went completely off the board. So the Pegasi redirected into the Chariot, which was an 18-inch charge, and they failed. So they tripped forward a couple inches and then tripped forward a little more because they landed in the middle of those squires over there. And then is this a Duke or a Baron? I can't remember.
This Paladin.
A Paladin. Paladin here. Charged into the Razor Gore. And one more charge. The Knights of the Realm successfully charged this Razor Gore in the middle. Alright, so movement phase, remaining moves for the Bretonnians. The squires way over there in skirmish formation had to move around the Pegasus Knights to try to get in the way of the charge from the Chariot over there. These peasant bowmen moved sideways to get away from the template. And these Knights of the Realm also moved sideways to get away from that Summon Elemental Spirit. And is that it?
Pegasus.
Pegasus. They have repositioned right there. Shooting phase for the Bretonnians. The Prophetess way over there in the Grail Knights tried to cast Column of Crystal and was dispelled. The Peasant Bowman shot the nearest Ghorgon right there and failed to wound it. And the Trebuchet rolled a misfire, rolled a twang, and didn't get to shoot this turn. And that's it for shooting. Not a whole lot of effectiveness there. We've got the Razor Gore versus the Knights of the Realm. They just killed it with their charging attacks. He's dead. We'll see what happens afterwards. They overran straight into the skirmisher unit, and they ranked up and managed to all move 5 into that rank formation without taking any casualties from coherency. Paladin on the Royal Pegasus versus the Razor Gore. Paladin and Pegasus just killed the Razor Gore on their charge attacks. Razor Gore didn't get to attack back. The Paladin decided to overrun. It rolled really low, but it's still just enough to get out of the charge arc of the Chariot and out of the charge range of that skirmishing Gorbel. Strategy phase for the Beastmen. He got unnatural quickness for +1 initiative for the turn off the Gaze of the Gods table. And the Elemental Spirit moved a couple inches over that way. Didn't hit anything. Charges for the Beastmen. So the is a complicated charge over here, but the Dragon Ogres declared the charge. The Peg Knights countercharged. Then the Chariot charged in on the Squires over there, and then they ranked up. A little hard to see from this angle. I can hear it move around a little bit. Just check that out. And then they actually lined up perfectly, which meant that when the Chariot charged, it actually also charged the Pegasus Knight. That would count as disordered, we believe, but the Chariot does actually now get to be in combat with both units at the same time. So this is one big combat, more or less. Then over here, they overran last turn to charge in. So the Ghorgons both charged into the flank. They blunted the lance. And I think that's it for charges. Yeah, that's it. Remaining moves for the Beastmen. So this Chariot just shuffled sideways a little bit to try to get within 3 inches and into the front arc, so that it only gets a front arc charge against the Paladin. The Dragon Ogres actually, the Great Bray Shaman used Travel Mystical Pathway to pick up the Dragon Ogres and drop them down in the forest there, so they'll be covering the flank against the Peg Knights if they come in. And that Ghorgon over there went and hid behind the Dragon Ogres. And I think the chariot shuffled a little bit. Shooting phase for the Beastmen. So the Great Bray Shaman cast Vile Tide, rolled 26 hits, and they're just gone. They just evaporated. He only actually did 6 wounds, but he failed all of his ward saves, so they're gone. Then he cast Wind Blast on the Peasant Bowmen, killed 4 bowmen, also caused them to panic. So they gave ground and fell back in good order through the Men-at-Arms. Men-at-Arms are fine, though. They passed the panic test. And then he recast Summon Umpled Spirit and put it there instead of the old location. Here's the Ghorgons and the Gors against the Knights of the Realm. The Ghorgons killed them all. And they're all dead, so we'll see what happens with the overruns. And the Ghorgons charged forward a couple inches with their Frenzy, and then took their reform checks, passed them both, and rotated that way. Alright, so this combat here between the Dragon Ogres, the Chariot, and the Squires, and the Peg Knights. They did a total of 5 wounds. I believe it was 4 on the Peg Knights, 1 on the champion of those, and 1 on the Squire. And the Peg Knights did 2 wounds back. The Chariot and the Dragon Ogres are both close ordered, which means that the Beastmen won this combat by 5. And we have Eli here to do the break test. Give it a roll. What is it?
3 and 5.
8. So that's a fallback good order.
Good order for
All
the
right,
Pegasus.
for the Pegasus. All right, do it one more.
Do one more, pick up these 2 die, and do one more for the Squires.
2 and 5.
Oh my god.
Another fallback in good order.
High five.
All right, we'll be right back. And this is where we end up. They decided to both pursue the Peg Knights, and they fell back 4 inches. So you're going to get full charge bonuses next turn on the Chariot with the impact hits and all that. And the Squires are chilling over there. Strategy phase for the Bretonnians. He tried to Fated Dispel the Elemental Spirit, failed. It moved, or it stayed completely still. We just did not roll a scatter. And then over here, she cast the Lady's Wrath successfully. Once again, the wizards are out of dispel range of each other, so they're just free casting right now. And the Grail Knight champion used the Falcon Horn, so no flying again. Charges for the Bretonnians. The Paladin on the Royal Peg charged in here on the Chariot. And hey, Aiden. The Grail Knights charged in here on the Dragon Ogres. Movement for the Bretonnians. Remaining moves. The Squires stayed put. Peasant Bowmen stayed put. The Men-at-Arms moved forward. They're just trying to reduce the initiative bonus on the Ghorgon, I guess. Best thing they could do. And the Peg Knights took a march move, and they're way over here now. Shooting phase for the Bretonnians. The Squires shot the Ghorgon and did no wounds. The Peasant Bowman shot the Ghorgon here and did a wound. Took 1 wound there. And the Trebuchet shot and scattered 10 inches way out in the middle of the tundra right there and did no damage whatsoever. All right, we got the Paladin on the Royal Peg with the BSB against this Chariot. The Paladin did 3 wounds to the Chariot. Chariot did not do anything back. It fell back in good order and tried to go around the terrain a little bit. Paladin pursued, and they're back in combat. We got this big combat over here with the Chariot, the Dragon Ogres, the Grail Knights, and the Peg Knights. So the Chariot ran into the Peg Knights and finished them off. They only had 2 wounds left. Then that, by the way, the unit being wiped out caused the Squires to panic, and they fell back in good order off the board, so they're dead. The Grail Knights came in and did 3 wounds, I believe, to 4 wounds to the Dragon Ogres. 4 wounds to Dragon Ogres, and the Dragon Ogres hit back and did not kill any Grail Knights. Anyway, the Bretonnians actually ended up winning this combat by 2, despite losing 2 units in the process. And both the Chariot and the Dragon Ogres are falling back in good order. All right, so we thought through the game theory here. I think the Grail Knights actually makes the most sense to restrain. So they have restrained. Here's the 2 fallback in good orders from the Dragon Ogres and the Chariot. Beastmen strategy phase. The only thing that happened is Gaze the Gods went off and got Iron Skin from +1 toughness, and that's only for this turn, so probably won't matter because he's probably not getting combat. Charges for the Beastmen. We've got 2 Ghorgons charging into here, the Men-at-Arms. And we got this mess. So you did actually end up countercharging a little bit, or not at all? You got the full 4-inch countercharge with the Grail Knights, and everything else charged in and blunted their lance. So got a big mess. Remaining moves for the Beastmen. So the Dragon Ogres rotated a bit to protect against the Pegasus Knights over here. And the Bray Shaman actually moved up to the front of that skirmishing unit of Gors. to get within 15 inches of the trebuchet for the shooting phase, and the chariot marched over there. Shooting phase for the Beastmen. So, weirdly, Viletide actually can't harm a trebuchet that is tough 7, because it's only a strength 1 attack, which is kind of funny. So he had to shoot at the peasant bowman. He killed 6 out of 7 of them, and the last one fled off the board and did not panic the trebuchet, fortunately. And it did panic the trebuchet. So is the trebuchet dead as well? Oh, geez. Okay, so they're all dead. Okay, never mind. And Supplemental Mental Spirit went right there. The Ghorgons versus the Men-at-Arms. The Ghorgons did 14 wounds between all their attacks. The Men-at-Arms, the only guy surviving an initiative to attack, was the champion who did 2 attacks and did not harm anything. So they lost by 1,000,000. They have broken and fled. Here's the flee roll. Let's see it on camera. All right. 8. All right.
We'll take it.
So despite rolling an 8 and the Ghorgons having the blood greed rule, the way the angles worked out, one of the Ghorgons rolled a 6, and they had to flee from the other Ghorgon, this one here, because we had to randomize it because they have the same unit strength. So unfortunately, just barely rolling a 6 on 1d6 caught a flee roll of 8. So we're going to remove those Men-at-Arms. They're dead. The Paladin on the Royal Pegasus BSB against the Chariot, he killed him before he could do anything, and he chose to overrun and rolled a 15 with the Swift Stride, so he's way over here, ready to flank. Alright, this combat over here with the Dragon Ogres, the Chariot, and the Ghorgon against the Grell Knights with Prophetess. The Grell Knights rolled just incredibly cold, like unbelievably cold, did no wounds at all, and then they all got murdered. So that's it, they're all dead. Well, we'll see what happens with the overruns here. And here's where we ended up with the overruns and the restraints and the reforms. All right, we're going to end up calling the game after that. I mean, just the Beastmen are winning by so much. All he's got left is the Paladin BSB and the Peg Knights here. If this were like a tournament game, he'd probably just play keep away and preserve the points, and that doesn't make for very good YouTube viewing. So I suppose we could just smash all the units into each other for fun, but this game is effectively over. We're going to declare this to win for the Beastmen, and we'll be back in a second with a debrief. All right, end of the game, after action report. So the first thing we want to address is that this list, as introduced in the beginning, would have actually needed a Doom Bowl instead of a Gore Bowl. And the reason for that is that the Doom Bowl needs to be leadership 8 in order to be the general, because the Great Bray Shaman is also leadership 8. And so if you take a Gore Bowl, it can't be a general, which doesn't unlock the Ghorgon. However, we talked it through. It doesn't really affect the game that much, because the way we would have reshuffled it is we would have taken a Doom Bowl, and then we would have downgraded the Gray Shaman to level 3, and we would have taken a Dragon Ogre.
Yeah.
This unit of Dragon Ogres sat here the entire game and never fought. So if it was 2 instead of 3, barely any difference. And none of the casts from the Gray Shaman, because it was out of dispel range for most of the game, would have really mattered. So honest mistake there with the general, and we'll like rework the list next time. But just in general, I mean, this seems like a very powerful list, especially for the 25 comp.
Especially when you build it correctly. That's my bad.
I don't feel bad. I don't think this would have actually mattered that much.
I play a bunch of different lists, and again, it's like I didn't get an error in the app when I was building it, so I thought I was in the clear. And also, I thought the Gore Bowl would have just been the leadership 8 for some reason. But it's too many systems. I missed the footnote. But
again, would not have affected the outcome of the game, most likely. So
not the way my opponent was rolling.
No,
Garret was stone cold ice.
Yeah, lots of 1s and 2s.
I think if I even dropped a Ghorgon, I probably would have been fine. I could have played 250 points down the way you were rolling this game.
Yep.
But,
so anything you would have done different, at the start of the game with those first couple charges?
Other than the list, no. I think this strategy, played essentially the same. When I saw Garret put his Lord forward, I knew immediately, it was like, since I was going first, he wasn't going to be able to harm me, so I was going to have my Flying Carpet available for at least one turn. So I was like, oh yeah, I got to go for it and try to snap off the general. Because he did take that item where I can't Killing Blow him, so he's actually really good at fighting the Ghorgons. And then, once I think, that's probably the best way to start a game out. I think if it was just if it was a casual game, I'm like, all right, let's re-rack, put your general back 2 inches or whatever, and we'll start over. But it's other than that, I think the game went pretty well. I wasn't really sure how to handle this flank. He definitely had more maneuverability than me. My game plan was just to feed him 50-point Razor Doors and 80-point Chariots, and just hopefully I can focus enough on this side. So.
And eventually that worked because by the time he was done eating all the Razor Doors and the Chariots, everything else was dead.
Yeah.
So you could have, if he
Yeah.
really wanted to charge you, even with his maneuverability, you could have formed up and had enough, bulk there to actually take on this Pegasus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really strong list too because as you're, as Bretonnia, right? Like one of the things you want to do is get in on the flanks with your Pegasus, try to collapse those, and then crush the middle.
Mm-hmm.
When the middle is Ghorgons, that's obviously a very tough call already. But the Pegasus aren't going to stand up to fight them, so you can't just have that. I knew positioning my Lord forward was a chance. I was really hopeful. Ironically, he got way above average rolls on Valtide after killing the Lord
Yes.
on units where he probably didn't need to do that. So it was like, and he just killed the Lord, like literally had just enough sixes.
Yeah, just
and
enough
after-
wounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly enough.
it was, to me, that was a risk I wanted to take because I knew if I was going to have any chance taking out the Ghorgons, it had to be the Lord and the Grail Knights. And the right flank was actually where, as much as the Lord dying in the middle was a problem, I think the right flank was where the game was won or lost. That's why I deployed there.
Yeah.
And because, so that the Pegasus got the charge on the Razorgore and he fled, I was like, that's instant trouble because my hope was to kill, overrun, and they either go off or they go right in the corner and then they're there threatening, and then they can come up and hammer an anvil with the Grail Knights, which is a really strong, it's really more like hammer and hammer, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want. So that didn't go the way was actually
Was the
worst.
flee off the board an unexpected move for you?
Not the flee off the board. I did think he would just. I actually did think he would stand, but it was like either way I'd have to go, and I was like, okay, if it doesn't work, I can get the charge into the chariot, and then I rolled 2 3s.
I
And it wasn't enough.
really did not want that yet. Because if you catch it and kill it and reform, you're out of my arc and you're
Yeah.
behind my army, and that's the last place I want Pegasus Knights.
Yeah, no, you do not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I think that flank was actually where the game was won or lost. This
Yeah.
flank went to plan more
Yeah.
or less, right? Like I cleared it, but those Pegasus, the real key thing was having that summon elemental spirits here that kept those knights from moving forward. Because if I was able to get a double charge on those dragon ogres, it would have been tough. I might not have made it, but I might have been in the flank with the Pegasus, and then that would have made that a little bit more even. And even if they're in the flank, if they kill one, they don't get any attacks back. They can push forward. That would still kind of work.
Yeah.
So really, I kind of conceded the middle at the start there, thinking that the Lord, if he survives, I'm just going to charge him in, try to kill a Ghorgon or two before he goes down, and then try to really win it with the Grail Knights. So that's I think to redeploy, if I put the Grail Knights in this spot where they would have been with the Prophetess able to more dispel, that would have been better.
Yeah.
But I also think if I had done that and I fail, he probably just blenders the Grail Knights turn 1 anyway. Right,
Yeah.
and if those guys go
Yeah.
off, there's no Falcon Horn, which did end up, I think, affecting the game a little bit. He couldn't be as maneuverable, so like that was a choice that I made, hoping that and obviously you're like maybe he fails, maybe he dispels. There's like a 1 in 4 chance he just fails to spell. So you're just kind of playing the odds there and saying if he fails it or I make enough saves, we're good. This was a game where I basically didn't make any saves. So
Yeah, so
yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah.
I mean, the rolls generally are not on camera in my battle reports, but man, they were cold.
Yeah.
Like all
It's
game.
right. It's good that they weren't, because it would have been a horror show. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a battle report; it's a horror movie. At
Yeah,
that
yeah,
point.
you have
So yeah.
Put an age restriction on the video. It's,
Yeah.
it's too hard to watch. You're too young to see this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bad.
All right. Well, I think it was still a pretty entertaining match. It was interesting. So yeah, thanks for showing up and keeping a good mood about it.
Oh, fun game, great opponent. Love coming out and playing games.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
And
It's been really fun.
thanks for watching.